live.
So welcome back to another First Class Fantasy. I'm Theo Greminger, and I'm joined as always by Billy Muzio. And we have a special guest today. We're joined by Matt Kelly, the podfather himself, to celebrate day one of the NFL draft. How excited are you guys? How are you guys doing? How great is this day for fantasy, Matt?
I'm excited. We were at the ESPN radio this morning. Anand and I showed up at 8 a.m. and we talked all about Kansas City and what they're going to do. But also just they had a lot of great questions. We were there for an hour, and they really wanted to dig in and talk about, hey, who's going to be the biggest bust? What's going to be the biggest reach? What, how are these quarterbacks going to go? So we did dig. It was fun to dig into one team and go through their like the Karlaftis pick. Some of these picks that Kansas City's had have been amazing lately. They're hot and cold at the end of the first round, right? So it's either Clyde or Hilaire. And I came up with so I invented a verb. You don't want to get Clyde or Hilaire.
No.
Right? And so that was basically
the verb.
Exactly. So you don't want to reach on a running back in the first round, even if he looks great, even if he's Jahmyr Gibbs. I explained to the people, right, ESPN radio, why you absolutely cannot draft a running back in the first round. I mean, unless it's Bijan, I could see that, hey, it's top of our board. We've got to get this guy. He's fallen all the way to 32, 31, however you want to count it. Fine. Okay. That's something, but not Jahmyr Gibbs, not any non-Bijan running back in the first round. That makes no sense. When you look at the contract values, I just said, we went through I was like, look at this contract. Look what Damian Harris got. Look what Miles Sanders got. That was the big contract, right? Tony Pollard, franchise tag. You just go down the board. Look at all these running backs you can get. Dante Foreman, Rashad Penny. Look at literally pennies on the dollar for Rashad Penny. And he was a first round pick. So there's woke up early in the mindset. We weren't even caffeinated. And we were just going at it on the radio for an hour. This is what we live for, man. We've been talking about this for so many months. Now we're actually going to have teams to line up with these players.
It's unbelievably awesome. I mean, Billy, what's your favorite part about the NFL draft?
Just knowing the landing spots. Like I just anticipate it when it hits, because then I can actually dive in deep, right? I can look at the projections. I can look at where people are going to land. We can actually accurately project their fantasy stats and their scores for the season. And this is where my role kind of really kicks in, and it takes, the experts like Cody, who have been doing all this research leading into the draft, that allows me to come in now, see the actual landing spot, and to be able to project their stats more accurately. So it's just from a number standpoint, and to be able to kind of envision what the offense is going to look like, how the OC is going to use them, being able to use that information now that you have it is my favorite part about the draft.
Yeah, and I love it because it's a time of year where NFL teams actually have to tell us the truth. There's so much lying and so much, this guy's so great, and so much, we're pleased with this skill position set. And then they actually just turn it upside down. So it's been such a fun time to discuss like free agent landing spots with you guys on the Sonic Truth podcast and in this podcast. But now it's like, hey, some of these guys that we're really into, their teams might not like them so much. And that's going to be the focus of today's show. You've been watching countless podcasts and listening to countless podcasts talking about the rookies and where they're going to end up. But today we're going to go and take a look at some veterans that are going to stand to gain and lose the most value during the course of this NFL draft. When one door opens, another closes. That's always how it is in the NFL. And I think first we should start with some trades, because we know some trades are going to go down. There's been some smoke. Matt, what's one veteran that you think might get traded, and maybe a landing spot that you'd be excited about them landing in?
Well, local KC radio thinks that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a Chief.
That would be pretty spicy. Fire. That would be awesome.
They're like, this is, they're all in. We want this to happen. I was like, yes, this is the way to go. If you are a win now team, like it's just like Dynasty, same thing, right? You don't want to speculate on young receivers if you're a win now team. You just want to, even if you think you're a year away, you want to acquire wide receivers that are going into their second contract or just got their second contract. The move is not to draft Jalen Hyatt at the end of the first round and hope that he wasn't a system wide receiver. That's not the move. The move is to actually acquire a known quantity of wide receiver. Wide receivers, so think about all the mistakes that have been made. Think about the players that went in the second round ahead of DK Metcalf. Andy Isabella,
And he is
guys like guys we like, players I like, they bust for some. I mean, N'Keal Harry's a great example. Like that pick was
so bad.
That was the 32nd pick in the first. It was this last pick in the first round. And that's the great danger if you're a Kansas City. You don't want to do that. You want to get a wide receiver that is a known quantity that was efficient. That's why I love our efficiency stats on Player Profiler so much. You can go and say, hey, Adam Thielen declined across the board in all these efficiency metrics. He's dust, right? DeAndre Hopkins is not, right? He's at $30 million against the cap. Okay, so it's $30 million against the cap. You can do a trade and restructure for DeAndre. That's a great use of resources if you're Kansas City, and then use that first round pick at the point of attack. Use it on a lineman, use it on an edge rusher. That's the sweet spot for positional depth in this draft, is late first edge. There's so many good ones, and that's the position that the Chiefs should be circling, not wide receiver.
It also gives them the opportunity to use him as that veteran presence to help develop somebody like Sky Moore, right? And to really, allow them to take another risk on a receiver later in the draft and to help develop them. And they don't have to rely on that individual from day one, right? And so I would love, from a fantasy perspective, we would love to see DeAndre Hopkins and the Chiefs. It makes
it
makes me
laugh. Like the idea is
it's like playing Madden, right? And we're just trying to accumulate this massive team to win. But
Kelsey would go down a little bit.
Kelsey would go down a little bit. You would have to, yeah. Because now you have a true X on the team, right?
Yeah.
And especially someone you can utilize in the red zone, where Kelsey has just been so good as well. And so I think it would make a lot of sense for the team from a team perspective, as long as they can get the contract, everything to line up. But more importantly, it's going to be great for development of the younger receivers.
Yeah, I mean, it would be an extremely exciting day for fantasy managers if we did have DeAndre Hopkins move to Patrick Mahomes. And how frequent would we see Kansas City stacks? That would be like, for our FFPC listeners, that would be like the most common stack would be like a Patrick Mahomes, DeAndre Hopkins one, which would actually be
a 1-2 turn.
But I want to also get your guys' opinions. There's two other landing spots out there for D-Hops. One we could kind of get excited about. One could kind of make us sick. Talk about Buffalo and Baltimore, Matt. How would you view DeAndre Hopkins in a Buffalo Bills uniform? And how about the Baltimore Ravens, and maybe pour one out for our boy Rashad Bateman if that happens?
So last year, DeAndre Hopkins, 2.21, number 17 in yards per route run. So he still got it, right? He still got it. Some of the other metrics, the yards per reception, that was more due to the fact that the catchable pass rate was relatively low. His contested catch rate. Some of these metrics are declining slightly. The guy's 30.
Yeah.
Right. That's what happens.
Target separation declining.
Yeah. The target separation was outside the top 40. There is some decline, but he has at least one super productive year, 1,000-yard season left in him. He can't go to Baltimore.
No.
He can't. It can't happen. Why? We just got over rationalizing Odell Beckham Jr., those of us that are the Rashad Bateman truthers, to now have to rationalize DeAndre Hopkins. The fact that the team has even had these conversations and these leaks have come out is terrifying. It necessarily diminishes Rashad Bateman's dynasty stock. It does. It's a signal that this team is not fully invested in a first-round wide receiver that is one of the more highly skilled prospects to come out in years at the wide receiver position, and yet they're just constantly shopping for upgrades at the position. I hate that.
Well,
I hate this.
It also just describes the lack of trust they have in his recovery right now, where he's at inside his health recovery and how far he's going to come along. But the report was he just started running, right? He's got to get up to NFL speed. He's got back in NFL shape. If we're now just seeing him run this late after the injury, there has to be some concerns about his longevity, or at least the beginning, the first quarter or half of this year, and what he's going to be able to contribute to the team. They must not trust that he's going to be fully healthy to go by camp and to be able to rock and roll by week 1. Otherwise, they wouldn't be adding all these receivers to try to lure,
Last thing we're going to do, though, is give up on Rashad Bateman. We're not giving up on him. We have conviction. That would be the sucker move of all time, to be so bullish on Bateman. And just before he hits the field and starts to break out all over the place, we pull the plug and we say, nah, we're out on Bateman. Absolutely not. That's not what we're saying.
This is the talks about the importance of landing spot with these prospects, right? Because had Bateman landed with a pass-heavy offense, we'd be talking potentially about a completely different player right now, right? But the fact that he landed in Baltimore, where they're a run-first team, it significantly impacts these rookies. So I know we always say, oh, it depends on landing spot for dynasty value. We don't want to rely on landing spot. We want to go for the talent of the prospects. And I get that argument, but I'm a firm believer in landing spot as well, and what's going to happen with these kids' trajectories in their careers.
Yeah, landing spot is, we often talk about it for quarterbacks and their developments, but it's pretty much every skill position player. You find guys that, Matt, you talked about Kansas City, how Isaiah Pacheco landed perfectly. If he gets drafted in the 7th round by pretty much any other team, we might not be talking about him at all this offseason, but he lands perfectly in Kansas City. He gets an opportunity. He runs hard. He produces, and all of a sudden he's a thing. Let's talk about one other landing spot, though, for Hopkins. I think Buffalo would be an extremely exciting one. They've been, we've talked about trying to find a second offensive skill position player that we want to draft for our fantasy teams to go along with Stephon Diggs. We had Mike Leone on. We talked to him about it, and we couldn't really come up with a consensus, Billy. But I think if DeAndre Hopkins is traded to Buffalo, getting a 22% target share from Josh Allen, DeAndre Hopkins is going to gain 30 spots in ADP. He's gonna slide right into that 4th round.
If not higher. You look at the explosiveness of both these offenses, and both of them are missing that true number 2 in the offense. And they're both inside that X position. So I think Hopkins on either of these is a fantasy gold mine. You don't need an analyst to tell you this, but it would be amazing from a fantasy perspective, also for a team perspective for the NFL. But it's all going to break down to what it's going to cost them, right? And what picks they're going to have to give up if this trade is actually going to happen. But it could definitely impact the landscape of tonight's draft. It could definitely impact the division that they're in if he does land. So I love this time of year being able to speculate on what's going to be happening.
What would you give up? Would you do a 3rd rounder?
For Hopkins, yeah, I think your 3rd rounder, you got to renegotiate some of the contracts. You got to take on some more of the money, and so there's a lot of things you have to look at. But I think a 3rd rounder for Hopkins, he's still going to be able to contribute. He's still going to be able to beat people. He's still going to be able to give you that veteran presence on the field and help mentor these young players. So there's a lot of benefits to getting him on the team, especially if you're win now like Buffalo, if you're win now like the Chiefs. I think that there's a lot to like about it. And if it makes sense financially for them and be able to, get the pick, that's the magic numbers of what that pick's going to be.
I've heard that Arizona is so desperate to trade out, and that scent of desperation has permeated the league, and now, or diffused, I guess is maybe the right word. Because permeate would be a liquid.
Diffused is
diffused would be a scent in the air. So it has, and now everybody knows that they're negotiating from a position of weakness. And Anand and Dury believes they're going to end up trading out potentially with the Titans, so the Titans can trade up to get C.J. Stroud at 3 for a bargain. So basically, what they're going to give in terms of value to the Titans, and then what they're getting back is going to make Carolina puke. Like Carolina is going to look at this trade. Anand believes that Carolina is going to look at the deal that the Titans are going to end up getting, because the Cardinals have lost their leverage. The number of trade partners continues to dwindle. The word has got out around the league that no one really wants this pick, and they're going to end up, the Titans could end up stealing Stroud. It's a very rare thing that I would want to trade up. However, if the price is right and it's for a quarterback,
quarterback's the key.
Then, and it's C.J. Stroud, right? It's all these things. Like, it's not only the fact you need a quarterback, the fact you can trade up 8 spots to the 3rd overall pick and potentially only give up 1 first rounder in the process is insane. But it could happen. That would be right. That would be a deal that I would consider if I were on the clock, or the 3rd pick were on the clock and CJ Stroud was there, because CJ Stroud has the best combination of a high floor and a high ceiling of any of the quarterbacks in this class. So to get that guy on a team that's ready for a quarterback. Like, Houston's not ready for a quarterback. I'm very proud of Houston. Good job, everybody. Good job, Houston. Right? Like, having the self-awareness to not go quarterback. Like, they're not ready. They're going to set up whatever quarterback goes to Houston is going to be set up to fail. The best thing
Houston
they can
needs
do,
everything.
Right? Yeah, the best thing they can do is draft Anthony Richardson, at the 12th pick overall.
12th overall.
Right? And if they can't get Richardson, trade down again and maybe get Hendon Hooker and let him. Either way, you're letting both of these guys marinate for a year before they would come in there. You'd have to have some meat shield quarterback that just puts all the arrows this year, because they're going to be bad, right? They're going to have another top pick next year. And then next year you can start to turn the engine over and let this thing be competitive. And then the fact that they're going to go Will Anderson most likely at 2, this might just be a blind squirrel finding a nut, but it could be a signal that this front office is a little savvier than they've been in the past.
Well, we're going to take a look at a few more veterans, guys, but first let's take a chance to pause and listen to our sponsors, the FFPC.
People always ask me,
It's coming.
People always ask me, hey, what is the World Series of fantasy, or the Super Bowl of fantasy football? And it's easy. It's the FFPC, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. It's a $6 million prize pool. And they've had their Never Too Early Best Ball leagues cranking since February. And so the FFPC is the answer to so many questions. Hey, where's the best place to get a Dynasty Orphan? Well, you can adopt a Dynasty Orphan at the FFPC. That's why we partner with them. If you want to play fantasy football for low, medium, high stakes, seasonal, best ball, dynasty, go to the FFPC. And don't forget, promo code Underworld to get you $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team, no matter what team it is, no matter what format it is, at the FFPC. Go do it.
And we're back. So one running back that some people think has already been moved is Dalvin Cook. And the trade is just going to get announced tonight, or possibly announced on Friday during day 2. Matt, where would be a landing spot? We talked about this on the Sonic Truth podcast with Alan. There's not a whole lot of landing spots where Dalvin Cook could gain value. Are there any that you see him that you'd be pretty comfortable that he at least retains, a high-end level for next season? Or do we need to potentially get ready to really move him down in our redraft rankings?
Well, what if could he go to Buffalo?
He could go to Buffalo with the Cook brothers.
I mean, wouldn't that be kind of cool?
Yeah.
To join his brother, he'd be the bell cow again on a great offense. But that's what he is. See, that's the thing.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
He is that.
There you go, Billy.
You don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, but he already is that. Like, Alexander Madison is a guy, right? Alexander Madison's another one of those reasons why you don't need to spend up for running back. He's perfectly adequate, right? 25 fantasy points when he's called upon, right? He's the chalk in DFS. He's the
every year.
I mean, whenever he's the starter, he's the chalk in DFS, and usually pays off. And he's not that good.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It doesn't matter. That's a great offense. That is they're going to get Darisaw back. The thing is, they're going to be a lot better this year because the offensive line is going to be healthy.
Yep.
And they're probably going to do more investments in the offensive line.
They got Hawkinson now for a full off season.
Yeah. It's going to be almost, I think everywhere it's a downgrade.
What about Miami, Matt and Billy? How would you look at him and the Miami Dolphins?
Miami was the name I was going to throw out there, just because we have 2 backs that combined probably aren't going to even see a full season, right? We know that both came from the Niners, both have injury concerns. We saw both of them get injured last year, both in the same game even. So they're going to need another back. I was thinking it could be Dalvin Cook. It could be Kareem Hunt. Both of these guys really fit the system and what they're trying to do down inside of Miami. And I think they'd both be very fantasy relevant, especially considering how explosive the offense looked last year, with McDaniels there as the new head coach. And so would love to see it. The speed they have in the rest of the field is going to spread and really open up a lot of the lanes for the running game as long as they can get someone consistent back there. And so I would love to see Cook in Miami. I'd love to see him also.
Oh, yeah. He's better in Miami than in Buffalo because he doesn't have a running quarterback in Miami.
Yeah. And
that's the thing.
The other one also that I would like to throw out there could be the Bengals as well. Right?
Bengals is interesting
because you have all the news about Mixon. There's all this law stuff going on. They've talked about him being moved all offseason. It's going to be a back they're going to rely on. They know they can trust. They can use him in the passing game. They can use him on the ground. He's successful in the red zone. This is what this offense needs, is a reliable back like Cook.
If you have Cook in Dynasty, if you've already drafted him, in a bunch of best ball rosters, the nice thing is most of the teams are going to be in the market for a running back like Dalvin Cook are great offenses.
Yeah.
Right? It's a rare thing that yes, he could end up in Baltimore, right? That's always like the worst possible case scenario for DeAndre Hopkins, for Dalvin Cook. It's certainly possible that he goes to
But Monken uses running backs.
But if he goes to Buffalo, that you've dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
If he goes to Miami, you're feeling good. What if he goes to the Philadelphia Eagles? That's probably best case scenario.
That would be great.
That would be the one place that he could go where he could actually gain value. But again, that's another mobile quarterback. So
I don't know. The Eagles.
The Nick Sirianni lecture is coming up.
Yeah, Sirianni uses 3 running backs regardless of who he has. I mean, the line is amazing, and that's the beauty. The efficiencies might counteract his loss of touches, but Sirianni is going to use 3 running backs. They have Gainwell still there. They re-signed Scott. They went out and got pennies on the dollar, like we said earlier. If they come in and bring Cook in, now you have 4 backs for them to rotate in, and
listen,
we know they're going to rotate
in.
in.
The bottom line is Miami's the best spot. Miami's the best spot because there's the least amount of touch competition, and you don't have a mobile quarterback that can steal touchdowns.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it.
One other running back where we had the trade request, then things kind of died down a little bit, and fantasy kind of stopped talking about it a little bit, was Austin Ekeler. That's kind of picked up steam in the last 48 hours. Billy and I were talking about that this morning. You talk about a player playing at such an exceptionally high level in Los Angeles. This could be like the surprise move during the NFL draft. We'll start with Billy on this one. Billy, where would be a spot where Austin Ekeler could retain some of his value?
Again, every team we just mentioned is in the hunt, one for a Super Bowl, potentially. Right, with Miami potentially, so I say potentially. The other 2 teams are in the hunt for Super Bowl. They need another reliable back, where someone like Ekeler brings a complete new dynamic look to these teams. Honestly, from a fantasy perspective, it's going to hurt because Kellen Moore is expected to help this offense really go to the next level.
Well, the contender that could use Ekeler, right? The most, the Chargers.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes too much sense just to stay.
Austin Ekeler.
What's happening?
Pay Austin Ekeler the bag.
Really, really dumb.
Just keep him, please. Like, fantasy would love it. You guys are going to love it. You're throwing the ball 600 times a game. You have one of the most dynamic pass-catching backs in the game. Why are you getting – I mean, just pay him, please. I understand he's past the age apex, but there's a point where you have to have the loyalty to the player as well and what he's been able to do. And now that you have all the pieces coming together, keep the running back, attack the draft, another receiver – help the defense, help the line, whatever you want to do. Now you're going to create another need for the team. I would just keep that.
And Matt, you talked about in regards to the Kansas City Chiefs, how when you use that early pick on a running back, how it hurts you in other parts of the draft. And it would be just counterintuitive for the Chargers to chase the Chiefs in that division, because the only way that they could replace an Ekeler is by potentially using that first round pick on either moving up and getting Bijan or reaching and taking Gibbs
early.
So it would be completely counterintuitive not to pay him the bag.
No. Billy's mock. Billy has a mock up on playerprofiler.com. Check it out in the article section. He and Cody have competing mocks that were posted. And you have Jordan Addison, a local boy, going to the Chargers, which is just perfect. It's just perfect on so many levels. The heir apparent to Keenan Allen, It makes way too much sense not to happen. If they screw around here, right, and somehow trade Ekeler, only to draft a running back, it's so right wild. The market for running backs isn't even that expensive. I don't think that he can't possibly, seeing what running backs have been commanding in free agency, he can't possibly be asking for so much money that it would make sense for them to dump him and then try to bring in a rookie running back. I mean, it would be a clear step backwards.
Yeah.
How about an offense that would be a step backwards in terms of an offense would be Washington. That's one team that's been linked to Austin Ekeler as well. Billy, how would you adjust Ekeler moving to a potentially keep his same target share, but in a much worse offense? Where would you have to adjust him, you think, in your running back?
Why do they hate Antonio Gibson so much? It doesn't make any sense.
It is one of the greatest mysteries among NFL coaches is why Ron Rivera does not like Antonio Gibson. That's a 2-hour show.
If the Chargers wanted to trade Ekeler for Antonio Gibson,
Can you imagine Gibson in the Chargers?
That would make me very happy.
My best ball shares would love it.
That would be incredible. That we should do. That I'm in favor of. That wouldn't be dumb at all. That'd be perfectly reasonable. Yes, do that. I mean, it'd be idiotic for Washington to do that.
I think regardless of where Eckler's moved, if he is moved in general, I think it's a downgrade on his redraft value.
Yes.
Just because we're not going to see that type of pass volume in any other offense. And I think that his usage and how he's been utilized at goal line has been utilized as a 3-down back. There is no scenario in which I think he's going to elevate himself into the number one spot for the running back on any other team outside of the Chargers.
I know it's in the division, but you would think with the Javonte Williams injury, the Broncos going into the season with just Samaje Perine, they could use an Ekeler, but these trades just don't happen in the same division. It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
But if you're looking at a team that needs a satellite back desperately, it's the Broncos. So I think they're probably going to draft somebody. The Broncos will probably draft like an A-Chain. A Devon A-Chain. Someone would draft a Tajay Spears.
I like Spears.
See, that's the guy. When I was talking to my friends over at it was ESPN 810 in Kansas City, they were asking about, what should they do in the middle rounds, 4th, 5th round? I was like, that's when you want to get your running back.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in this class.
They could say, what about Jahmyr Gibbs? I was like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, but you go Tajay Spears.
Yeah.
You get the 5th round Tajay Spears to the Chiefs. That's that's the move right there.
So there's a number of other guys that could potentially get traded. Derrick Henry, Mike Evans, but I want to get your guys' opinion on a player that we all really like in Tony Pollard. Are there some running backs that would worry you about Tony Pollard's usage? Bijan's kind of the low-hanging fruit, but are there any other rookies out there, Matt, that would make you worried about Tony Pollard potentially losing value?
Yeah, Zach Charbonnet has an all-purpose skill set. Jahmyr Gibbs is essentially a Tony Pollard at the college level, right? But a more productive college running back than Tony Pollard ever was, and certainly a more premium prospect, a higher rating on the Breakout Finder than Tony Pollard had. So Jahmyr Gibbs certainly would be the number one disaster scenario. I don't think Devon A-Chain would be that much of a disaster because I think Devon A-Chain's overrated. So A-Chain's going to go to the Cowboys. He's going to try to compete with Pollard in some of the same packages. He's not going to be as good. He's going to get blown up in pass pro, and they're not going to play him. So I'd be fine with a running back I think is overrated going to Dallas because I know Tony Pollard's just going to outplay them. So that's the thing. It's really Charbonnet and Gibbs and Bijan, and then that's the list, really.
Gibbs would be the nightmare because of the pass catching ability of Tony Pollard would just kind of get put in the back door because Gibbs is going to command targets no matter where he's drafted. Billy, how about Roshan Johnson just falling into the Zeke Elliott role? Is that going to change anything? Could that elevate Tony Pollard? Be great.
I actually have Roshan projected to land in Dallas because he's going to fill that goal line back, the 2-down bruiser they're going to need, that strength they're going to need to kind of be the lightning and the thunder in order for this backfield. I think that it makes a lot of sense. Plus, you know, he's from Texas. He's going to just make too much sense with the Cowboys. There's a lot of targets and there's a lot of overall touches in this backfield that are up for grabs. So even if in the worst case scenario, any one of these running backs that we just named actually lands in Dallas, there's still 200 plus touches. There was 12 touchdowns last year that Zeke had. There's still 25, 30, catches that are still available in this backfield. And yeah, we're hoping that a lot of these go to Tony Pollard, but as efficient as Pollard was, I don't want to see Pollard in a 230, 240 carry back. He's not going to be able to manage that workload on an entire season. We want to see someone that's going to complement him, that's going to be able to run inside the tackles, that's going to take those big hits for him so they can continue utilizing him in this efficient and explosive manner. So I think there's enough meat on the bone to be able to be utilized or have even another top tier back in this offense, and the efficiency they're going to have overall to be able to support two backs. I mean, we saw it for years, for the last couple of years with Zeke there, even as in the words of Theo, as dusted as he was. And so I think that regardless of who it is, there's enough to go around. But I would love, of course, to see someone like Roshan.
Yeah, and I think that one thing we've talked about is with the Dallas Cowboys offense going to a new offensive coordinator and the loss of Dalton Schultz, there's an opportunity for Tony Pollard to be used in an expanded role in this passing game. So it's exciting. Let's hope that he can avoid a Bijan, avoid a Gibbs.
They can't do that. They can't draft a running back in the first round. Their offensive line was not good last year. And it's getting older. They need to protect Dak Prescott. They're paying him hundreds of millions of dollars. The last thing they need to do is go and use first-round capital on a running back, given the opportunity cost. Look at the players that are – Billy, who do you have mocked to Dallas?
Dallas, I have taking Titan. I've been taking Dalton Kincaid. I've been going for.
I love it.
Kincaid.
I love it.
I think it's a terrible pick. I hope they do not do it. No,
they need a tight end.
Great.
I understand they need a tight end.
Too.
I'm not drafting for the Cowboys. They could easily. They want to get the heir apparent to Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz 2.0. Great. What you get in that area of the draft is you can get an elite edge rusher. That's the thing. That's what they should either be going edge, but they don't see, of all the teams in the league, it's interesting. Edge is, like I talked about, doing the Karlaftis redux, just going right back to edge at the end of the first round for Kansas City. I think most teams should be doing that. They should be tapping into the Miles Murphys, Felix and Adike Azoma. There's Will McDonald. There's so many good ones in that area of the draft. That's where they should be focused. If not, I think there's a couple linemen that could go first round that are not being, because one of my favorite bets is over 5.5 linemen drafted in the first round. I think we could have 7 or 8 drafted, because there's guys like Cody Mosh, right? There's got, look at it, Steve Avila. You can go down the list. You've got Joe Tipman. A 313-pound, 6'6" lineman from Wisconsin, right? You want to bring in a guard. I know he's or a tackle. You got John Michael Schmitz. He's a guard. There's just so many quality. This is a great area of the draft to get edge, but also under the radar linemen, especially a guy like Cody Mach, who's from South Dakota State, North Dakota State. So he's from a small school. Super athlete. Check him out on Player Profiler.
Big boy, 300 pounds.
Yeah, he's got size. He's got athleticism. If you are a team that is ready to win now and you're paying hundreds of millions of dollars to your quarterback, that's Dallas, that's Buffalo, that's Kansas City, that's Cincinnati. Stop even considering tight end, wide receiver, right? Jalen Hyatt, get the hell out of here. Jahmyr Gibbs, get the hell out of here. And just go chalk linemen. Or if you have problems rushing the quarterback, again, Dallas doesn't have that problem. Most other teams do. Go edge. But if you're Dallas, I think you go lineman. I think you go, because where Dallas picks, it's also conceivable that like an Anton Harrison falls to them.
Yeah.
If Anton Harrison is available and Dallas goes Bijan Robinson, I'm going to lose my mind.
Well, one guy that might make you lose your mind, Matt, is a guy that we are big fans of in our dynasty rankings. We've talked about him a lot on the Sonic Truth Pod. Billy and I have talked about him a lot on this pod. And Billy and I, we actually selected him in our best ball draft, our FFPC best ball draft, and that's Rashad White. Right now, Rashad White is going right around RB25, and we have him inside the top 15 among our dynasty rankings. Matt, how worried are you about Rashad White? Are you going to even watch day 2?
No, man, it's not good. Here's the thing, though. We talked about Devon A-Chain somehow theoretically outplaying Pollard in passing situations. That's not going to happen. Whoever goes to Tampa, assuming it's not an elite player, whether it be, I mean, it could be Bijan, it could be Jahmyr Gibbs. I understand these are possibilities. As long as it's not those two guys or Charbonnet, just a non-top 3 running back, I'm comfortable with, because I know Rashad White's going to outplay them in camp, and it's going to be irrelevant. He's got an all-purpose skill set, and he has that high dog rating, and it's very difficult for a rookie who's never played it down in the NFL to come in and outplay that guy in camp. I'd have to see it to believe it. So even if it's a Roshan, okay, so he loses some early down work to Roshan, fine. It'd be terrible for Roshan, just an awful situation for Roshan. But not actually outside the big 3 running backs. I don't think that any of those players would be much of a threat, especially this year, to Rashad White. Now, maybe a year from now, Rashad White picks up an injury, player exceeds expectations, Abanikanda is more lateral quickness than we thought, right? He's better, he's exploding through the holes, and they're wide running lanes for him. And he looks great. Then we could have ourselves a situation where it's like the Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman, only on a much worse team in Tampa. That would be bad for Rashad White. It would be bad, but that's like 2024. I think for this year, there's only a couple cards in the deck that can really hurt him. They are the thing that really killed me was Charbonnet coming in for a top 30 visit.
Yes.
When I saw because he's not had that many top 30 visits. He's not a top 30 player. Like, why anyone's bringing in Zach Charbonnet for a top 30 visit is insane. It's totally illogical, but it happened, right? And he came in, and I'm like, oh, that would, oh man, like basically a similar guy that's a little bit bigger and is going to have earlier draft capital. That is a threat to Rashad White.
Billy, how insulated is he due to his receiving ability, though? Like Matt brings up them drafting another running back. For me, it's a draft capital thing. Like if they're super comfortable with Rashad White having a larger role this year, I think they do. They just skip, like day 1 and day 2 are completely skipped.
Yeah.
If they just take a day 3 back, like
even a 3rd round back.
Yeah,
Keyshawn Vaughn was 3rd round.
that's a good point. Their success rate on 3rd round backs.
Trey Sermon was a 3rd round pick. It's not actually that scary. Okay. And especially in their rookie year, if you're not one of the elite talents at the position, if you're not a Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, you're going to struggle as a rookie. That's just life in the NFL for most players.
Yeah, and they're just not committed, so they're going to be, I think, utilizing White regardless. Again, there's a lot of opportunity in this backfield.
I almost think it could be a value creation opportunity. So if they go Abanikanda, if they go A-Chain, if there's a bunch of running backs they could draft, and I'd actually be okay with it. I'd be like, this is good. This is fine. This actually is a value creation. He drops a couple rounds on Underdog. He drops a couple rounds in the FFPC. And I'm looking at going, well, there's nothing here. There's no there. Maybe if there's reports coming out of camp that running back X, Kendre Miller, is destroying, okay, well, let those reports come out. But until I see it, I'm going to be drafting Rashad White even probably more aggressively.
Yeah, I think it definitely creates a lot of opportunity from a draft room standpoint, from us from fantasy perspective. But there is a lot of targets. And I guess we have Baker Mayfield. It's not going to be Tom Brady from the ball. So we have to have that consideration. We have to know that the efficiencies are going to be reduced. But there's still a lot of touches in this backfield as well that are going to be up for grabs. So even if they do, again, same scenario as Dallas, the pie is large enough with the opportunity share for there to be two backs in this backfield. Yes, it's not great for his fantasy perspective, and it might hinder his breakout, but it's not going to like completely annihilate it.
Yeah, I think that right now Matt hit the nail on the head. I think he's actually the kind of guy that you want to kick the tires on dynasty-wise as a trade target, because the Wolves are circling. I know for my dynasty teams, I have, these lowball Rashad White offers coming in.
He was so inefficient
vultures.
last year.
They're circling.
The Wolves are
yes.
circling.
His yards per carry, Theo, it was under 4.
Tom Brady's gone.
There's
Theo.
the yards per carry mafia is out in the streets on Rashad White
This
already.
is terrible.
Yeah.
Never mind that their entire offensive line went down by the time that he ever got serious touches. It's, a significant opportunity share. And then even when Fournette came back, guess what? They didn't take that opportunity share away. They shouldn't have let Fournette keep catching passes. But I was looking up, and White would have more carries in a game where they're trying to win games. Fournette is playing, and White's commanding more touches. This is Leonard Fournette. This is like, one of the leaders of the team to help them win a Super Bowl, a former first-round pick. And they're using White as much as they did with Fournette on the roster.
In the passing
and Fournette active was a much better signal, positive signal, much more important positive signal than some of these efficiency metrics where, as a rookie, these guys tend to not be the most efficient runners. Well,
they're just getting used to the NFL speed.
there's a ton of running backs.
Yeah.
Where if you just looked at their rookie year and be like, oh, that guy's not good enough. That guy's not going to stick. And then the next year, guess what happens? Everything changes.
It takes time to get acclimated with the NFL speed and to learn the blocking schemes and to learn the routes, and then to pick up a new offense. And then not just that, but now you have the best chasing you, right, going after you, tackling you. So it just takes a minute for them to get used to that speed and be able to adapt to it. And so that's why we see that delay in some of these prospects of them getting into the NFL and getting used to it. So never want to write them off that soon. And so
It's insane.
Rashad White's one of my guys on the site. Like, I love Rashad White, and I think he has every opportunity to be successful this year with or without the Bijan.
And all the whispers coming out of the organization are that they love the player, that he's got incredible leadership skills, showing, teaching by example. I mean, Keyshawn Vaughn's never gonna get it, right? Keyshawn Vaughn's never gonna the lights come on finally. Yes, I'm looking at Rashad White.
This is the year.
I got to be more like that guy. I got to show up to the facility early and leave late like that guy. No, like Keyshawn Vaughn, that when he left the Senior Bowl after the first day, that was the first sign. They're like, nah, this guy's not about that life.
Guys, one wide receiver that we've talked about here on First Class Fantasy is Mike Williams.
Big Mike.
Now you've got Jordan Addison going there.
I do.
That's big time trouble for Mike Williams.
Yeah, it is. You look at this offense in general, and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen both have not been able to stay healthy. So I think this is more about the team wanting to secure another receiver who's going to, one, be the replacement to Keenan Allen in the future, but also be there in case they do need him to step up in year one and be able to utilize him and not skip a beat in this offense. And I think Addison's that guy. It's not great for his fantasy value because Big Mike has never been a volume receiver. He's always made explosive catches and been down the field. And so in that capacity, if we see a 2% target reduction, like we see him go from like a 19% target share to a 17% target share, or even, God forbid, below, it's some serious concerns about how much he's going to lose, and he's going to start coming down the projection in the rankings.
I rarely advocate trading up. It's a very rare thing, right? Again, if the Titans can get CJ Stroud and not give up more than one first rounder, that's a trade I would make. Okay. The other move I might consider is if I'm the Chargers and I'm nervous that neither Flowers nor Addison will be there.
Yeah,
you think of all the teams and all the needs, especially teams that are in win now mode where Herbert's like at the end of the rookie deal. It's now or never. That's why jerking around Austin Ekeler makes no sense, none. And there's a lot at stake for them to get that third receiver. And there's a big gap from Addison and Flowers down to whoever your number 4 receiver is. Now, for me, I don't see that big of a gap from those guys to Marvin Mims, but the NFL doesn't value Marvin Mims the way I do. And so if it were me, I might just roll the dice. And if I can't get Addison in the first round, Mims to get him in the second round. That's probably what I would do. But if they wanted to trade up 3 or 4 picks to make sure they're locking in Flowers or Addison, because that is such a glaring need for them, both in the short term and the long term, and they're so deep in all these other positions, that would be the one case where I could co-sign a trade up.
What, with the potential for CJ Stroud ending up in Tennessee, that has to make you guys a little bit excited about Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks is a guy that we've talked about being a value in redraft, and a guy that we've also talked about, Matt, on the Sonic Truth Pod as a potential breakout year 2 guy. It's like a low-hanging fruit. Treylon Burks seems like it's happening. Oftentimes we see these rookie quarterbacks kind of have tunnel vision for their top target.
So good.
You could see Treylon Burks creep up into top 18 wide receiver season.
It's also possible that CJ Stroud's not a tunnel vision quarterback. He's just awesome. Like, he basically translates what he was doing at Ohio State to whatever his new team is. In this case, probably Tennessee. Just like Patrick Mahomes. Like, oh, Patrick Mahomes is system quarterback. No. Right? CJ Stroud proved at the combine and through all the workouts that no, he's not a system quarterback. This is not a Graham Harrell situation. He is that guy that was super efficient, and he's got the hidden mobility. We've talked about that on multiple shows. So it would be a dream come true for Treylon Burks. I think it's a major upgrade. To get CJ Stroud in the building.
Yeah.
Would be the trade target where you can go to a dynasty owner that happens to have Treylon Burks and be like, hey man, what do you want? They might not appreciate CJ Stroud. They might be one of these draft zombie people that thinks that CJ Stroud is like the 3rd or 4th best quarterback in the class, right? And they don't appreciate him, and they might let Burks go, where you're like, this is an opportunity. Burks' career, it could be a lost career. We've seen this with Bateman, was due to injury, but also landing in Baltimore. There's been a number of wide receivers that are what-if wide receivers. What could have been had they landed somewhere else? Treylon Burks looks like one of those guys, and they could rescue him in year 2 with CJ Stroud, and that's when you have to go in hard and try to acquire as much as you can before week 1, and then realize, oh, wow, CJ Stroud is ready to go. He's starting week 1. He's a plug and play. He's the most pro-ready of all the quarterbacks, and there goes Treylon Burks with a 100-yard week 1, and then you're like,
and then
it's over. Like you can't let the dust settle after the draft. You have to go aggressively try to acquire Burks if they end up with a major quarterback upgrade in Tennessee.
Yeah, they also, they have a lot of needs in this offense. The quarterback, I think, is the most obvious, but they also need another weapon in this offense as well. They don't have no number 2 behind Burks. Now you're talking about Derrick Henry being on the trading block and on the move. That would completely change his offense, right? You're going from a run-first offense now, you're going to have to throw the ball because you don't have a back to lean on, which would be even better for Burks. Or
they could trade Henry and draft Zay Flowers.
That's why, like,
they could just stay put and do that.
Treylon is like, I had him in my Dynasty Landmines article you can read on Player Profiler. Like, see how I slid that in there, guys? But like, Treylon Burks has a huge range of outcomes here because there's potential he has a big quarterback upgrade and also goes into it more of a pocket passer than a guy with manufactured rushes like Ryan Tannehill. Or he could have increased target competition in a bad offense and lose a lot of value.
That's true.
Like, this Treylon Burks is like a hold your breath.
I know. If the trade up happens and they get Stroud, then they necessarily can't add the target competition because they won't have that pick anymore that's in that wide receiver sweet spot where Addison and Flowers are going to go. So it helps Burks on 2 different levels. If the trade up happens, which it probably won't, but it could, and it would be fun if it did.
One wide receiver that's gained some value as like a wide receiver 3-ish, high-end wide receiver 4 is Brandon Cooks. Could Brandon Cooks be just like a false flag here with Michael Gallup being healthy and also Dallas potentially, according to Billy Muzio, bringing in a rookie tight end and potentially a rookie wide receiver?
I think Cooks is safe. I think he's going to be that number 2 they can lean on. They haven't been able to count on Gallup, and I think that Gallup brings a lot to this team, but when he has been on the field, but they need somebody like Brandon Cooks who's going to be able to get on the field and be able to take some of the pressure off of CeeDee Lamb. Again, a lot of vacated targets on this team, whether they, bring another individual in, they have all the Dalton Schultz targets that are gone. There's a lot that they can do inside this passing game, but I think Brandon Cooks is solidified as that number 2 and is going to be, a healthy back-end wide receiver 3 in fantasy perspective.
There is risk. He is a concussion away from his career being in jeopardy.
Yeah, hard to predict him though.
I know you can't, but a lot of players get a lot of concussions, especially smaller players.
Yeah.
So he's been very lucky the last few years. He's not suffered any new concussions.
Yeah.
He still has that sort of career fragility that a lot of other players don't have. So that's always something to keep in mind. That's why the risk factor with him is just a little bit higher than some other veterans that are in that age range. But he's very steady. The last time he was a false flag wide receiver was that 1 year with the Rams, right, where he was just a field stretcher and more of a decoy to get the ball to Cooper Kupp. So they have their Cooper Kupp and CeeDee Lamb. It's possible. It's possible if they add you got Pollard out of the backfield, potential upgrade at tight end. It is possible that Cooks is barely usable, especially now that he's almost 30. That is possible, but I still like it. Yeah. I still like weapons like him, have the explosiveness in the right offense. It's very possible that he, like you said, he's a trap. But over and over and over again, if you focus on those types of players as the number 2 receivers that you especially in best ball when you're rounding out your best ball wide receiver group, it's hard to go wrong because there's also the possibility that CeeDee Lamb picks up a hamstring injury and then suddenly now he's the number 1 in the Dallas offense. So it can cut both ways.
No, for sure. Dallas is definitely a team to keep an eye on as always in every single NFL draft. Guys, we're reaching the end of our show here. I quickly want to touch on the tight end position. There's obviously a number of guys that could lose substantial value in Dynasty, like overnight. Guys like Gerald Everett, those type of players, if they draft a rookie tight end, we have to quickly adjust how we view them in Dynasty and in redraft. Is there a player who maybe the Dynasty community and just the redraft community views as a safe tight end, like a low-end tight end 1, high-end tight end 2, that could all of a sudden have target competition from a very good rookie tight end? Billy, anybody really jump out at you?
I'll put me on the spot here.
How about David Njoku?
That's a great one, Matt.
How about David Njoku? The problem is this team has a lot of depth at a lot of positions. And the tight end group it's a high quality tight end group. You can't have enough tight ends. They've had a lot of injuries to the position. They brought in Harrison Bryant, with a mid-round pick when they had Njoku on the roster a couple of years ago. That didn't necessarily work out. But you're gonna be in a situation where you're in the 3rd round and the best player on your board is a tight end. And you're looking up and going, we're not getting that much out of David Njoku. Like he's a great move tight end and he's athletic, but he's never actually broken out to a place where you could say, okay, this is a building block piece of the franchise. So that makes him vulnerable, especially given the depth. When I see some teams, people talk about like the Tampa thing, right? Yes, they brought in Charbonnet for a visit, but I just can't even in a remotely rational world imagine a team with that many needs and that has so many players that have aged off the roster, that they have so many places to go with that pick that they would burn it on running back. They'd burn the early capital on running back. I just can't get my head around it. But a team like Cleveland that doesn't have a hollowed out roster, if they want to just, draft from position of strength,
luxury pick
with a just the best player on their board, that's how Njoku can suddenly have his get chopped out from under it. Like if they go Tucker Kraft, a tight end we like, then Njoku's going to lose value.
It's a shootout division too, Matt. You touched on that. So I think there's a chance that the Cleveland wide receivers might take a hit. Like, we don't know what Cleveland's going to do because their roster's in pretty sound shape. Billy, I'll
What
just
about Tennessee with Chigo?
don't even put that out there.
I mean, we're all projecting this Chigo breakout season, and they have a lack of pass catchers on the Billy. What if they say, you know what, we just don't like another receiver. We're going to go double tight end, and we're going to run 12 personnel this year. That would really hurt.
That would hurt a number of my best ball builds too, Billy. And I'll throw Greg Dulcich in the same regard. Like Chig and
They still have
Dulcich.
Albert O though too. Like it's kind of like a like a safeguard. They're not going to go that direction.
Pick 42.
Yeah, there's
Pick 41, 42.
I had to think about it for a second.
Titans. That's a tight end sweet spot.
That is like could a Sam Laporta, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Chig Okonkwo.
And then now they run to this 12 personnel group because they didn't like a receiver.
Laporta
Oh, man.
right there. Oh, what if Musgrave slips?
Oh man, it's
They're gonna want him. Oh,
Theo's best ball team's a sweat's
yeah,
coming down.
it's a huge sweat. I have so much of Chig and a little bit of Dulcich mixed in. It's a sweat for sure. Guys, I want to close with this. Where is Bijan Robinson drafted, and where does he end up in redraft with that landing spot? Start with Billy.
So I mocked to New England last night. I really do think he could go to Atlanta. I think that's kind of the chalk pick. But it would not surprise me if he's on the board still and he's there, and Belichick decides to take him.
they're leaning into the running game.
Yeah.
That's what they want to do. That's what they want their identity to be.
Old school football. It's ground and pound and play defense.
I love. It makes a lot of sense.
I would hate it from my Ramondre Stevenson
Of
shares.
course.
Be a sad day for
The
Ramondre
Ramondre
Stevenson.
Stevenson stands would lose their mind in
Oh,
Dynasty. They would lose their mind.
I think a piece of my soul would die. I mean, they would go with it.
And Bijan's value would go down. It would be terrible.
It would
just
be
be
gross.
so bad. I can't even. Like, we know he's
Would
not going to the
Bijan
Jets.
still be the 101?
Yes. He's insulated for the 101 in rookie drafts, no matter what the landing spot.
Even New England.
Even New England.
I would like. Okay, Superflex, it's been Bijan still 101 in a lot of leagues. Superflex now, if Bijan lands on New England, is Bijan still the 101 in Superflex?
But Matt, we can't jump in with Young. We can't jump in with Stroud. And Anthony Richardson would have to land. Like, I think Bijan is so insulated right now in rookie drafts, no matter what. I think he's
It begs the question now, though.
Here's the thing.
It actually makes you think about it.
There's a possibility. I want to bring up one possibility for Bijan that no one talks about. And especially now that we hear that the Texans are not going to go quarterback. The Texans are going to go Will Anderson, most likely.
Yeah, he's been mocked there a lot, too.
And that's a smart pick, right? That's a smart move. They're not ready for a quarterback. They're about 2 years out from bringing in a quarterback that can actually giving him.
They're 2 years out from everything, though.
Yeah, I mean, but no, that's the last piece. You want to bring in the so you don't set up a quarterback to fail. You break. When you're rebuilding a franchise, the last thing you want to do is be too early with a quarterback and break him. And then by the time you start competing, he's almost has his rookie deal expired. So you don't want that. That's why you want to bring the quarterback in as the last piece of the puzzle. So that's smart. They realize this, and they're not. And this is a not weak quarterback class, but this quarterback class has a few flawed players that are going to go top 10. That in another year, with better quarterbacks in the pool, they would not go top 10. So that's what ends up happening when you have a position group where the players at the top are flawed, especially if it's quarterback. Teams are going to rationalize it anyway, even though they really should be just taking the best player on their board at that point at one of the key positions, whether it be a lineman, Paris Johnson, someone like that. Should just go that direction and close your eyes and not worry about quarterback. But so many of them, they're dazzled. Like we talk about, the Titans feel like this is the way to save. This is the move that's gonna save the team, right? That's the coaches. They feel like, hey, we're out of here if we have another losing season.
You have a new head coach, defensive minded, also could go to the ground and pound and defensive model this year. It's a very real possibility.
No, but the team though that I think could draft him is the Houston Texans.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
New head
The
coach,
Houston
defensive-minded.
Texans. The Houston Texans they're going to trick us. This is what I think is going to happen. Is that we're going to be like, oh, their front office actually does have some self-awareness, and they do understand some of the key principles of team building. That was a good move not to go quarterback there, and then for them to do that. and then 10 picks later to just go Bijan and just throw the whole table, just turn the whole table over.
And Bijan places them out of the Caleb Williams sweepstakes by running for like 1,500 yards. And they win 6 games.
He wins an extra game or two. It takes them out of the running for quarterback next year. They get great value on Dameon Pierce that they end up squandering because they did this. It would just be like if Kansas City goes Jahmyr Gibbs. The last thing you want to do when you hit on a 7th rounder is to then turn around and draft a guy in the 1st round the next year. Congratulations. You did, you got great value on a breakout 7th round pick. Bank the value. Use him. Don't draft another guy.
I'll say that I think it's going to be Atlanta drafting Bijan, and I think that we're going to end up taking him somewhere around 10 overall. Guys, this was awesome. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. And I want to say that we're going to be getting you covered. Why don't you, Matt, let everybody know what to expect from Player Profiler YouTube throughout the course of the NFL Draft?
We're going to be live for every pick of every round in Kansas City. We've got a separate news desk. We've got boots on the ground at the draft.
I'm heading to the draft tonight.
You're going to be there. We're going to have interviews. We're going to be follow us at Roto Underworld on Twitter because we're going to be calling some picks before they come in. Spoiler alert: if that's not your thing, don't tune in. Don't watch our Twitter feed. But I think we're gonna get a lot of people intrigued by some of the pick calling that we do because we're gonna be there and we're gonna have some inside information. So go ahead and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with how early we're able to call a couple of these picks. And we're gonna be live. So you could also have the television up. People have us as a second screen sometimes.
Yeah, and we're going to be updating projections live as the picks come in.
And we have the live projection desk. Yeah. So we've brought a lot of equipment. We've tripled the amount of equipment that we brought for this particular draft. Every year we're making it bigger. The production value is going up, and I'm excited.
It's awesome. This was tremendous, guys.
Yeah, always great to record in person. Love it, guys. Having fun here in Kansas City.
Hey, you like that video? Be sure to subscribe and activate those alerts so you get notified as soon as new videos drop. And be sure to check out playerprofiler.com. We have all the tools for you to dominate every type of fantasy league. We have a draft kit, Dynasty Deluxe, data analysis, DFS Dominator, and don't forget the player rankings to rule them all.